carbs or keto? In today's video, I'm going to break down which type of dietary strategy is best for you and your thyroid health. My name is Lauren Papanos. I'm a functional medicine registered dietitian that specializes in thyroid hormone and autoimmune conditions. One of the common questions that we see from clients when they come to work with us is how many carbohydrates they should be eating. A lot of times there's questions around it, or maybe there's even a history of trying different types of low carb and carb cycling and higher carbohydrate type strategies to figure out what's best for them. So in today's video, I'm going to give you clarity on which strategy is best and some considerations to take into account whenever you're trying to identify how much carbohydrates you should be consuming and the role of carbohydrates in your thyroid health. So the first thing that you should know is that when we're talking about the thyroid, we're really talking about the amount of free, usable, active T3. T3 is the active form of thyroid hormone that drives all cellular function. So it's what's in control of your metabolism and how quickly you digest and metabolize food for energy, your energy levels, preventing brain fog, helping with motility, so preventing things like constipation and bloating, even things like hair growth and reproduction, and helping with fertility and regulated cycles. So when we're talking about things to support thyroid health, we're really talking about what we can do to support our active T3 levels. We make T3 from the inactive form T4, and T4 production happens in our thyroid. But then in order for that T4 to convert over to that active T3 that we care about, that actually mainly happens peripherally, which means in places that are not the thyroid. In particular, this happens mainly in the liver, about 70% of it happens there, and in the gut, about 20% happens there, and about 10% remaining in the thyroid. One role that carbohydrates have is that one, they control what's called deiodinase enzyme activity. Deiodinase enzymes are found in the gut, and these are in control of how much of that T4 gets converted over to that usable T3 form. So what we see is that when carbohydrate intake drops, deiodinase activity drops, which means that T4 to T3 conversion also takes a hit. Additionally, a lot of the mineral-rich food sources that provide our thyroid the building blocks to make more hormone and convert that hormone over to that T3 form are found in carbohydrates. Some of those nutrients are things like iodine, selenium, magnesium, zinc, iron. A lot of these foods are found in foods that we get from plant sources. You do also get these foods from animal sources, but we want to make sure that there's always a variety of these different types of food sources, as these mineral sources that are found in plant foods not only provide the minerals, but also provide the fiber that helps to be able to control our blood sugar response and also helps feed those good beneficial bacteria and support liver metabolism. The liver and the gut are key pieces to that T4 to T3 conversion. So the more fiber that we have, the more that we're actually accelerating that conversion of T4 to T3 through the liver and the gut. Men and women respond differently to carbohydrate restriction. The research shows that women see a more abrupt decrease in that T4 to T3 conversion when they restrict carbohydrates. When women are on a very low carbohydrate or ketogenic diet, we see a reduction in that T4 to T3 conversion and typically lower T3 levels and sometimes higher reverse T3, which is the deactivated state of thyroid hormone. Now, this isn't all bad, because another thing that we see in a low carbohydrate ketogenic state is that the thyroid is actually more sensitive to those hormones. So we actually see an increased thyroid hormone sensitivity, which means we're not making as many hormones, but our body's utilizing those hormones maybe more efficiently. So it might not be all bad, but we always want to look at symptoms alongside what types of dietary strategies that you're following. If a lot of your symptoms originated when you went on a very low carbohydrate diet, it might clue us into that might not be the best situation for you, and that reduction in T3 or that increase in reverse T3 is actually a key piece that's driving your thyroid symptoms and driving a reduction in your thyroid hormone activity. Additionally, the longer that you are in a ketogenic state, the more improvements that we see in your cortisol regulation. And cortisol plays an important role in thyroid hormone production. Our adrenal glands, where cortisol are made, play an important role in how our HPA axis communicates, which stands for hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis, essentially how our brain and our thyroid are talking to one another. So when individuals are on a ketogenic diet, we see that over time, that low blood sugar state that can occur when you're on a ketogenic diet drives less of a cortisol response, which in turn impacts our thyroid less significantly. So, what you can take from that is that yes, going on a low carbohydrate ketogenic diet may reduce your amount of T3. But potentially, once you've been in a ketogenic state for a longer period of time, as long as you're asymptomatic, you might be okay with that reduced T3 level because your body's actually using those thyroid hormones more efficiently. Everyone's physiology is different, so it's best to take into account other factors like why are you going into a low carbohydrate ketogenic state? Are you doing this to also see improvements to things like metabolic function, fasting insulin, blood sugar, and what's your long-term play with it? Because typically speaking, with something like a ketogenic diet, unless you are using it for a medical condition, then it's typically not something we would advise long-term because it can decrease the amount of beneficial bacteria in the gut since you're not able to eat as many carbohydrates, which provide those prebiotics and fibers to feed that gut microbiome. So, if you're not sure which strategy is best for you, is it better to eat the carbohydrates or restrict the carbohydrates? It's best to get an idea of your labs so that you can understand where your labs are, where that T3 level and reverse T3 level is, what your symptoms look like, and how your current dietary approach that you're following may be impacting those levels and those symptoms. Additionally, it may be helpful to consider pulsing your carbohydrate intake, as this can be a strategy where you can get the best of both worlds. In our practice, we take into account individuals' symptoms, their unique physiology, as well as their lab testing results to understand what might be the best approach for them. And sometimes if individuals come to us that have low thyroid function and are also experiencing elevated insulin, i.e. insulin resistance, then we might utilize a very low carbohydrate diet strategy for a short period of time to increase insulin sensitivity and also improve their glucose or blood sugar control. Then after we've seen those improvements, we may start to reincorporate those carbohydrates back in so that we can actually improve that active thyroid hormone production and decrease that reverse T3 level, all while we're being mindful of cortisol as well as overall mineral intake, because these are key things that are also driven through that period of carbohydrate restriction that we don't want to see decrease as we decrease that carbohydrate intake. Additionally, you typically are going to have better insulin sensitivity around exercise. So this is also a strategy to consider, is maybe it's timing your carbohydrates so that you can use the bulk of them before and after exercise so that you can work with that natural insulin sensitivity, which essentially means your body's increased ability to metabolize carbs for energy. So this could be done while you're utilizing a very normal carbohydrate intake diet, or more so just trying to structure those carbohydrates more specifically around exercise and less of them in the hours outside of exercise where you have decreased insulin sensitivity. Everyone's body is uniquely different, and understanding your unique body and what your needs are is really key to understanding the best dietary approach for you, both in the short term and in the long term for your thyroid health and overall health and vitality. It has to be something that's maintainable and sustainable, regardless of vacations and holidays and all the other things that are thrown your way. If you want to learn more about the fundamentals of how to fuel for your thyroid function, you're going to want to check out my program, Functional Thyroid Foundations. In this program, I walk you through exactly the types of foods and the structure of eating, how to incorporate those carbohydrates and fats and proteins into your diet, the supplementation that you'll want to start, and even complementary lifestyle practices, as well as all the resources to help you implement that, like recipes, grocery list, meal plans, eating out tips, travel recommendations, you name it, it's in this program. You can learn more about the program Functional Thyroid Foundations with the link below. And if you love this video and you want to learn more about topics just like this, be sure to hit the bell to subscribe to my channel so you'll be the first to know when I release a new video.